Hello, and this is Malorian with the Orc Tactical Team for episode 6. And today, what we're going to be talking about is Deathstars. So, the idea of Deathstars in Warhammer Fantasy is kind of just like the movie, where the idea behind it is that you have something that is almost impossible to destroy and can destroy almost anything else. And when it relates to Warhammer Fantasy, there's a large variance in the strongest to the weakest, and what can be called a Death Star. And I mean, really, it can be as simple as if you take one unit, throw all your characters into it, and it's a Death Star type thing, right? Um, so really, if we're looking at it as a tactical perspective, it really is the apex of what tactical gaming is looking for, because what you're looking for is the advantage over the opponent and the best way to defeat him. And what could be better than something that can't be hurt and can destroy anything of your opponent's? The problem with this, and the reason why I can't stand Death Stars, is that they almost push it. Well, they do. A lot of them push them too far. But maybe I'll touch more of this at the end. So first of all, I'm going to talk about some of the different Death Stars that are out there. So probably the ones that are the most notorious are the ones for the Dark Elves. And the main reason why they're at the top of the list is because there's different areas that you want to cover when you're a Death Star. You have to cover combat, you have to cover shooting, and you have to cover magic. Now, for Dark Elves, they have an item where, of course, whenever you cast magic on that unit, any doubles will be a miscast. So all of a sudden, you can make one unit very resistant against magic. They have another one where it cuts the BS of the shooter. So when you're trying to shoot this unit, it's really hard to shoot at it. So there's some more defense you can add to it. And finally, in combat, they have, of course, the banner that gives them always strikes first. So if you ever try and fight these guys, they're going to hit back hard. And then finally, I guess another part of it can be even the psychology. And the two different units that you usually see this done for is either the Blackguard, which are immune to psychology, or it can be with the Executioners, and usually if they're matched up with the Hag and the Cauldron, they're going to be stubborn. So these are kind of examples of the tougher ones out there. Now, in the beginning, when I first was running into Death Stars years ago, the tactics I had for facing them were to redirect away, because usually these take up a lot of points, and so you throw a unit up to it, you redirect it out of the way, and then you deal with the rest of their army. Or some of these even, because back in the day, just saying you take your Black Orcs or Grimgore, and that's a Death Star, right? It's moving up, it's hard to take out, and when it hits you, it hits hard. But then all you do it is redirect it off to the side, you flank it, and you destroy it, right? So a lot of these things weren't so bad, and if nothing else, you'd flank and you'd hold them up. The way that this changed, and the way that my reasoning and my outlook on Death Stars changed, is when I went to a tournament. I went to a tournament with my dwarves, and my first two games were against Dark Elves, and both of them had the Executioner Death Star. And what that one is just for those who haven't seen it, if you're more used to the Blackguard Death Star, is that you'll have a unit usually about 5 wide, and in it there'll be a Hag BSB that has the Always Strike First banner. The unit itself will probably have the banner of the -1 to your armor save, the armor piercing banner, and then behind it will be another Hag with a Cauldron. So what happens with this is that the Cauldron makes that unit stubborn. The Cauldron itself is going to give that unit +1 attack. And so when you try and attack this unit, it's going to hit you first. It's going to hit you, each model in that, the regular guys, is 2 attacks, usually hitting on a 3+, re-rolled, usually wounding on a 2+, and then, you're minus, 3 or 4 to your armor save. So these guys just slaughter you. And in my game with Dwarves, the first one, I was able to flank one unit, so I got a fully ranked unit of warriors in the flank of one of these Death Stars, and I lost, because these things were so killy that they were able to make up for the lost combat res. Where sure, they got no rank bonus, I outnumbered, I had a flank, I had all my ranks, but because they killed so much, I still lost. And so I right away, I didn't think that it was, broken over the top or anything. And so in my next game, when I saw it again, I decided I'm going to shoot everything at it. And I shot a lot at it, and I almost wiped it out. I took it down to probably a third of its size, and it still ran right through me, because it doesn't need much. It doesn't need static res to do what it's supposed to do. It does it through kills. And so all of a sudden from that I started having quite a negative outlook on Deathstars and the way they affect the gaming environment in general. Because really, when you want tactical gaming, you're wanting to have lots of units, doing lots of maneuvers, you want to outsmart your opponent. But when you just have one powerful unit that you're just cramming down your opponent's throat, it's like I said, I guess from one perspective you could say that's the very highest level of tactics where you found the very best thing you can do, but in the end it made for just a horrible game. And you can have somebody that's a horrible general, but they just kind of got this list from the internet and bam, smashed into you. And some people will say, well, Malorian, you should have done something better with your dwarves. What was I supposed to do? I'm dwarves. I was lucky I was able to outmaneuver the first one. And when you have these Deathstars in the hands of a very capable opponent, it's very difficult to try and redirect or to flank or anything, because of course they're going to have it right in the center, and then they're going to be having units on either side to make sure that doesn't happen, and then they're just going to slam right into you. Another one that's very popular now is the Slan and Temple Guard. And this Death Star is a little bit different. It's really hard to take out. It's really tough. It is kind of killy, but not super killy. But the big thing behind this is that, of course, you have that Slan, that unit, so that it's just going to stay back and blast you. And if you dedicate anything to try and take it out, you're not going to. You're not going to take this thing out unless you're dedicating dragons or minotaurs or something to wipe out the unit. That's usually the only way you beat these things, is by wiping out the entire thing, which is almost impossible. So I really am starting to get frustrated with fighting units like that. And so I'm trying to spread the word. And whenever I do battle reports, I try and do more of a horde army, right? To try and show people that they can still win by using the other tactics, using that horde style army list. And you don't need these powerful Death Stars to win. Of course, I mean, it's not like I can convince everyone, and you're still going to see these at tournaments. And so whenever you are faced with one of these, Blood Knight, Death Star, whatever it is, you're really forced just to try and do that, to try and redirect. And or the new ones for Skaven, where you have these unbreakable super units, and the best you can do is try and redirect and try and just whittle them down from the flank to try and get half points or something. But the other aspect to these Death Stars is a lot of times they're also huge point denial. So if you don't destroy these, some of these ones can be worth a lot of points, especially if you have an expensive Slan or something, so that if you don't take that unit out, probably the best you can look for is a tie. And that's just, it's really, it's hard to get yourself motivated going into a game knowing that probably the best you can aim for is a tie. And I don't know what I should be saying here other than that. Well, there's another way to take on Death Stars, and that's draw tactics, but I'll be talking about that at a later date. So really the main thing I want to sum this all up is to say Death Stars are out there. They're very powerful. There's ways to mitigate them, but in the end it'd be a lot better if everybody decided to tone themselves away from that, go for more units, and you'll have a much more enjoyable game. And so that's it for today's episode, and in the next one I'm going to kind of go and expand on that a little bit more, and I'm going to be talking about being a bastard. So we'll see you next week for that fun one.